I could die when I'm done. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe we're crazy. Probably. Oh, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe we're crazy. Probably.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule this morning to spend a few moments with me here on SML TV. We're going to get into it real quick today. Just get myself set up here. Thank you so much to Chipego. A few shout outs before we begin. Chipego Munkombwe. Good morning, Mr. Mwewa. Good morning to you, Chipego. Thank you very much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about UPND's first 100 days. Now, I know this is a very topical issue. This is trending. Most countries do this. They do this to sort of grade and gauge themselves and see where they are and where they're going. I'm going to attempt today, this morning, to give you my opinion on what the UPND has achieved and what they plan to achieve. Now, let me make it clear from the outset, this is not an analytical economic expose. I am not an economist. I am not a political pundit, but I am a citizen that lives in the business community, lives and works within the business community, more works than anything else, really. And I have, in the 52 years of living, I have observed many things over the vast array of administrations since, as far as I can remember, since Vachiluwa's time. Of course, I was a very young person during Wakaunda's administration, but I've lived through all of them. Some of you haven't lived through all of them. I have. And so with the benefit of age and a tiny bit of wisdom, I'm going to give you what I think is my opinion on how the UPND have fared thus far. Let me begin by saying, and I quote, while we agree that there are no perfect governments, we do, however, acknowledge that some governments are better than others. That is a fact. There are some governments in this world that are obviously better than others. And I'm going to try to highlight and outline that. And I can honestly say, without any fear of contradiction or equivocation, that the UPND government, as flawed and as imperfect as they are still better than the Patriotic Front. Let me allow that to sizzle for a moment. Let that sink in your spirit. Let that sizzle in your heart for a moment. And let me say that one more time. The UPND, as flawed as they are worlds. When I say worlds, I'm talking about planetary edifices. The UPND are worlds better than the Patriotic Front. And I'm going to break it down for you today. Let's look at 5 things that the UPND has done exceptionally well within its first 100 days. The very first thing for me, and of course, having worked and operated within the CBD for many, many years, more than 30 years, I've worked and I've spent a significant amount of time here in CBD. One of the things that is starkly distinct, starkly unique, starkly obvious is that when the UPND first assumed office, one of the first things they did was they gave the local authority back its power. Now, let me explain what that means in simple terms. The local authority here, for example, here in Lusaka, we have the Lusaka City Council. Under the PF, under the Patriotic Front, under the leadership of President Edgar Lungu, the Patriotic Front had so infiltrated and so tainted the local authority to the point where the local authority could not carry out its duties and its functions. The local authority was tainted. It had a blight. It had a stain of the PF, and it rendered the local authority completely useless. Every component, every aspect, every nuance of the local authority was inundated, was flooded with PF cadres that were absolutely incompetent, and they rendered the local authority useless. You've heard me say this many times, and I'll say it again. Lusaka City Council runs the city. Everything you see around us, for example, the markets, the bus stations, those are the preserves of the local authority. The local authority should have a firm grip on those public institutions. But under the PF, the local authority had nothing. The markets, Lusaka City Market, BH, Soweto Market, Intercity, name them. They were all under the control of PF cadres, led by Mr. Davis Mwewa, led by Kennedy Kamba, led by Bowman Lusambo. It was a cartel. It was a clique of deplorables that literally did everything within their power to not only skim off the top, honey, they took the whole container. Davis Mwewa gave instructions to all the market masters, in particular here in Lusaka. The revenue, make sure it comes to the secretariat first. That's a fact. The markets, the bus station, intercity bus station, Abena Kennedy Kamba, Bowman Lusambo, Davis Mwewa, they had a cartel. I mean, they used to give each other loans, revolving loans, using public money. Ichilimba, we call, in my language, we call it Ichilimba. I'm a 30 pin per day, accessed through public funds. I mean, anywhere you went, PF cadres were in control. And ultimately, what happened was that the local authority was toothless. There was no service delivery. There was no accountability. There was no sense of putting the city first. The idea that the city comes first, that idea was alien to the PF. It was alien to the Patriotic Front cadres. And so We became accustomed to this chaotic, archaic way of living. But deep down within our spirits and our souls, we knew that this was not the right way to go. We knew that this wasn't the right thing to do. We knew that the Patriotic Front had not done the right thing. We knew. And little by little, the local authority was literally rotting from within. It was imploding from within. It was literally falling apart at the seams. At the seams, with our eyes wide shut. So that's the first thing. When the UPND first came into government, they gave the local authority back its power to do its job, service delivery. Now, it's not perfect yet, because the truth is there are still elements of rebellion within components of the local authority. And that's going to take time to change. But the heavy lifting has already been done. That's the good thing about it, is that the power has been given back to the local authority. You remember when the town clerk, when they took over Intercity that was run by Cadres. Munyaule, this new controversy that's come up now, Munyaule market that has a little over 1,500 traders in it. For years, it was run by Cadres. Lusaka City Council wasn't getting any money from Munyaule. It was an entity run completely and holistically by Cadres. But this new administration said, no, we're going to do it slightly differently. We're going to give the local authority back its power so that they can provide services, so that our roads can be fixed, so that our street lights can be fixed, so that garbage collection can be done in a much better way. There's lots to do. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Oh, this new administration, it's got several steps to go, but the consolation is that it has taken the first step. They have given the local authority back its power. Number two, the UPND have given us freedom of speech without reprisal. Now, freedom of speech doesn't mean irresponsibility. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you wake up and you cuss up a storm and you start insulting everybody along with their ancestors. No, freedom of speech means you give your opinion, you state how you feel without fear of reprisal, without fear of being victimized, without fear of being followed, without fear of retribution, without fear of oppression. The PF were stellar at this. The PF were surgical with it. Look at what they did to GBM. I keep telling the story, and I tell this story because I think it's a very important story to tell. GBM, a man that worked through the sweat of his brow, built an empire, a self-made man who decided to participate in partisan politics. And that decision, when he went against the grain, when he went against the Patriotic Front, what did they do? They came down on him like a ton of bricks. Retribution. They fixed him. They tried to do everything within their power to shut him up. And so they went after his businesses. That was the modus operandi of the Patriotic Front. If the Patriotic Front didn't like you, they were going to find something on you and use it to destroy you. Reprisal. They did it to Fred Membe. Fred Membe, who owned one of the largest circulated newspapers in the land, when he began to go against the grain of the Patriotic Front, they went after him and they snuffed him out and they closed that newspaper down and they looked the other way. The PF, reprisal, retribution, revenge, vindictiveness. That was the MO, the modus operandi of the Patriotic Front. Look at what they did to Prime TV. Prime TV spoke against the PF, and what did PF do? PF sat around a table and they said, the final solution is to get rid of Prime TV. Let's snuff them out. Let's blow out their candle. Let's extinguish their torch. Let's throw them off the cliff. Let's do away with them. Let's get rid of them. Reprisal. The modus operandi of the Patriotic Front. But under this new administration, and I must keep repeating, while they are imperfect, and they are, while they are imperfect, while the UPND is imperfect, in their imperfectness, they have managed to give us freedom of speech without reprisal. Number 3, the UPND single-handedly crushed the head of tribalism. Tribalism, a message that was being preached and championed by the Patriotic Front while using their surrogate, Mr. Chishimba Kambwili, a man that tried to do everything within his power to crisscross this nation and preach separatism and preach tribalism. They tried everything they could to tag 887, Hakainde Hichilema and his party. They tried to tag them as tribalists, but it didn't stick. The people of Zambia saw through that. We could see through it with our eyes wide open. It didn't work. And let me tell you something that I constantly say, and I will always say this only because it's true. Do you realize that if had the Patriotic Front returned, had they won the 2021 elections, do you realize that Tongas all over this nation would have been victimized, not because they belonged to a political party, but they would have eventually been victimized for being Tonga? That's where we were headed. That was the trajectory that this nation was on. You must know this. Here it is, the UPND single-handedly crushed the head of tribalism. You have a president in Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, as imperfect as he is, you have a president that is inclusive. Inclusive. He is nothing like what they tried to make him out to be. The PF did everything within their power. They grasped at straws. They filled the buckets. And they filled their buckets with the cesspool of tribalism. And they tried to offload those buckets onto the Zambian people. But the Zambian people said, no. You better step back with that tribal mess, we said to the PF. The UPND crushed the head of tribalism. Number 4, and this is a big one. They removed lawless Cadres from our society. Guys, you don't know how close we came to anarchy in this country. You don't know. Some of you youngins, some of you young bucks, B-U-C-K-S, bucks with a B. Some of you young bucks don't know how close we came to pure anarchy, lawlessness. We were inching towards a militia society. You had cadres like Innocent Kalimanshi, who had the audacity, he had the gall, the unmitigated gall to stand up on a platform on Facebook and say that we will not allow cows to come here and defecate here, in reference to Tongas. That was the type of lawlessness that we were experiencing. Innocent Kalimanshi. And the truth is, of course, we can say it now, but at the time, it was risky. It was risky. You couldn't say this when President Edgar Lungu was at the helm of this nation. But we can say it now in hindsight, and we can only say it because it's the truth. Mr. Edgar Lungu funded Innocent Kalimanshi's lawlessness. Innocent Kalimanshi walked around this city like he was the kingpin of lawlessness. Lawless cadres that felt that it was their right to do anything they wanted to do, and they did it with impunity. And the PF looked away. Anyone that would go to the Secretariat to complain about this lawlessness in this thing called cadresism, the PF looked away. They didn't care. Here it is. You have this Hakainde Hichilema who stepped up and said, no, this is not the way to live, and we're not going to live like that. We are a country of laws. Get rid of this cadresism. Get rid of it. Do away with it. And cast it into the sea of God's forgetfulness. UPND did that. UPND did that. Number 5. I didn't write it down. Let me write it down. Goodness. I wrote it down. Here we go. Just give me a second. Here it is. Did I say 4 or 5? Did I say 5 things or 4 things? I said 5 things, yes. Here's the 5th one. Here it is. You ready? You ready? Here it is. Raise the bar of leadership. You know, it felt good. The very first, and I'll never stop talking about this because it touched me so much, because I saw it unfold before my very eyes. For many years, I would see it where I sit now, here in my office, opposite City Market. I used to see this every single day, and it used to bleed me. It used to pain me. Oh, it used to scorch my heart. I would look into the market. Davis Mwewa and his band of criminals called PF Cadres would terrorize our marketeers. And they would tell our marketeers that if you wear anything remotely related to the color red, you were done for. You were doomed. They would cast you out and cast you down like the Sodomites. I saw it every day. A young man that's leaving his home. He doesn't know that the color red is going to cause him problems. He just wears it leaves his home. He's walking through the market. I saw this many times. Then PF Cadres, like goons, like gorillas and orangutans, they would surround this young man and say, "Where are you going? Dressed in red? Why are you wearing red?" And they would beat that young man within an inch of his life just because he was wearing red. And the young man wasn't necessarily politically inclined. He just decided to wear red that particular day. And he was beaten within an inch of his life. A young, innocent young boy. I have 2 sons. I have 2 daughters. 4 children I have. Can you imagine as a father, you as a father, you're at your office and you receive a telephone call. And someone says to you, your son is in ICU. And you wonder and your mind begins to race. Is he in a car accident? What happened? And then they tell you, they say, no, your son was beaten. And you're perplexed and you wonder, beaten? What do you mean beaten? Yes, he was beaten because he was wearing red and he was attacked by Cadres. And your son is laying in the hospital ICU. The Cadres beat him within an inch of his life, and your son might not make it. How would you feel? How would you look at PF Cadres? I never knew what happened to that boy. I don't know if he died. I don't know if he survived. But they beat him so badly that literally within an inch of his life. That's just one of many stories. During the PF, stories like that were replete. Stories like that were happening everywhere. I've just given you one story. President Hichilema, I'll never forget it. And I get teary-eyed when I think about it, because when he said it, it was almost like I was dreaming. In his first national address, this was from his house. He had just been elected as president. I'm giving you the point that President Hichilema raised the bar of leadership. In his first national address, one of the first things he said was, from now on, people have the freedom to wear anything they want. If you want to wear red, wear red. If you want to wear green, wear green. If you want to wear blue, wear blue. It's your choice. Nobody should victimize you because of your political choice. Boom. When he said that, I said, is the air different? What's going on? But it didn't stop there. The day after President Hichilema said that, I walked through the market. Now, remember, UPND has just won the elections. The PF were out. Hakainde Hichilema was declared the 7th president of the Republic of Zambia. UPND Cadres were everywhere, thinking that they were going to take over from the PF. And here it is, you had a president that raised the bar so high that he said, don't victimize anyone because of their political persuasion. I saw it. Walking through the market, I saw people freely walking, wearing green. Nobody was touching them. Do you think that would have happened in the PF? I've just given you the story of the young man that was beaten within an inch of his life for wearing red. And here it is now, you have a new president that says, wear what you want and nobody should victimize you for it. President Hichilema, as imperfect as he is, has still managed to raise the bar of leadership. Do you think we're going to go back to that type of anarchy? Do you think that after this type of leader, and there is coming a time where President Hakainde Hichilema will leave office because we live in a democracy. He's going to do his part. He's going to serve. If that's 5 years, 10 years, he's going to serve. Once he serves, he will step aside and somebody else will take over. But do you think that after this type of leadership that has raised the bar, do you think that we're going to go back to mediocrity? No, we're not. So in my view, the first 100 days of the UPND's administration, this is my score. This is my score. The UPND's administration in its first 100 days. Are you ready? 8 out of 10. That's a pretty good score. And that's just 100 days. Let's wait and see what they do in the next 3 years. Okay? Tell me in the comments below, tell me your opinion, what you think of the first 100 days of the UPND. Thanks for watching, guys. God bless.